My world shattered with a single text message I wasn't meant to see. The digital glow from my wife Anna's phone illuminated the dark kitchen, casting long shadows that seemed to mirror the sudden darkness spreading through my heart. It was a Tuesday evening, the remnants of our family dinner still sitting in the sink. Anna was in the shower, and her phone, left charging on the granite countertop, had buzzed with an incoming message. The preview screen displayed words that would forever divide my life into before and after. Can't stop thinking about last night's call. You're my escape, my everything. Jay. I stood there, paralyzed, the steam from the bathroom drifting down the hallway like a ghost. My mind, usually so logical and orderly, began racing through a chaotic montage of the past several months. The subtle shifts in Anna's behavior I dismissed as stress. The way she gradually withdrawn from our life together, claiming exhaustion or a need for solitude. She had left a demanding job as a paralegal at a prestigious Austin firm a year prior, saying she wanted to be more present for our 7-year-old daughter, Lily. At the time, it made sense. My salary as a senior software engineer was more than enough to support our family comfortably. But the woman who emerged from that career wasn't the joyful, engaged mother I'd expected. She spoke of feeling empty, of losing her identity in the mundane rhythms of motherhood and domesticity. I had tried everything I could think of to help. I suggested she take a class, reignite an old passion for painting, or even return to work part-time in a less stressful environment. I took on more household chores, made sure she had time to herself on weekends, and listened patiently when she voiced her frustrations. But my solutions, my logical attempt to fix the problem, were always met with sigh and a dismissive wave of her hand. "You don't understand, David," she'd say. "It's not about checking items off a list. It's about how I feel." The signs of something more sinister had been there, glowing as faintly as that phone screen, but my trust in her, in the 9-year foundation of our marriage, had blinded me to them. The phone was now a permanent appendage, clutched in her hand with new possessiveness. She developed a habit of angling the screen away from me, of quickly locking it when I entered the room. Our once comfortable silences were now filled with the frantic tapping of her thumbs on glass. She started staying up later than me, claiming insomnia and a desire to watch documentaries on the couch. But when I come down for a glass of water, I'd see her swiftly minimizing a messaging app, a private, fleeting smile vanishing from her lips. When she emerged from the bathroom that night, her skin flushed from the heat and her dark hair wrapped in a towel, I held up the device. My hand was unervingly steady, a stark contrast to the earthquake happening inside my chest. "Who is Jay?" I asked, my voice sounding foreign and flat to my own ears. Her reaction was a masterclass in deflection. Her eyes widened with genuine shock for a fraction of a second before narrowing into slits of indignation. "You're going through my phone?" she snapped, striding across the room to snatch it from my grasp. The gesture was so aggressive, so defensive, that it confirmed everything. "You left it on the counter." It lit up. "Who is he, Anna?" I repeated, my tone hardening. "It's nothing," she said, her voice dripping with a contempt I hadn't heard before. "Just a friend from an online support group for women feeling lost. You wouldn't understand the need for emotional connection. You're always so logical, so planned. Some of us need to feel things, David. We need to connect with people who get it." That conversation was a crack in the dam, and the ensuing weeks saw the entire structure of our marriage crumble under the torrent of lies and half-truths. The nothing named Jay became the central, toxic force in our lives. Anna became a ghost in our home, physically present but emotionally light years away. Our interactions were reduced to transactional exchanges about Lily's schedule or what to buy at the grocery store. The warmth, the shared jokes, the simple comfort of sitting together on the sofa, all evaporated, leaving behind a cold, sterile emptiness. She began using a new vocabulary, peppered with therapy speak and self-help mantras. She talked about setting boundaries, and I quickly realized I was the primary boundary she needed to set. She said she loved me but wasn't in love with me anymore, a cliche that felt like a punch to the gut. She spoke of our life as a gilded cage, a comfortable but soul-crushing routine that was suffocating her true self. Then, on a rainy Sunday afternoon, she dropped the bomb. She needed a break. Not a divorce, she insisted, but a period of separation to clear her head, to find her authentic self, without the pressures of being a wife and mother 24/7. Her plan was to move in with her older sister, Clara, in San Antonio, and take Lily with her. Just for a few weeks, she said, her eyes pleading but her jaw set with newfound resolve. I need this space, David. For me, for us, in the long run. If we have any chance of saving this, I need to remember who I am. I fought it with every fiber of my being. A break was just a coward's prelude to a breakup, a way to test drive a new life while keeping the old one on standby. I argued, I pleaded, I tried to reason. I asked her to go to marriage counseling with me, to work on our issues together, but she was immovable. She turned my arguments against me, framing my desperation to keep my family together as controlling behavior, as proof that I was part of the problem. She weaponized my love for her and for Lily, making my resistance seem like a denial of her fundamental needs. Worn down, terrified of pushing her away completely, and clinging to the fragile hope that this was just a phase, I reluctantly, foolishly agreed. The day they left was one of the worst of my life. Watching Anna pack Lily's small suitcase, seeing our daughter's confused tears as she loaded her favorite stuffed animals into the car, it felt like a funeral for our family. The house, once filled with noise and life, became a cavern of silence. Lily's absence was a physical presence, a hollow ache that followed me from room to room. Anna's texts were brief, functional updates. Our phone calls were stilted and superficial, conversations between two polite acquaintances. She was careful not to say anything that could be construed as affection or a desire to return. Meanwhile, her social media presence, once dormant, exploded to life. She became an avid poster on Instagram, crafting a carefully curated narrative of her journey. There were photos of her sipping coffee at independent San Antonio cafes, of her on solitary hikes in state parks, her face turned toward the sun. The captions were filled with quotes about rebirth, courage, and the beauty of starting over. In many of the pictures, she was in a frame, the shot clearly taken by someone else. When I asked who was taking the photos, she gave vague answers about friendly strangers or using a tripod. The smile on her face in those pictures was wide and unburdened, a smile I hadn't been able to elicit in years. It was a smile that explicitly excluded me. The gnawing suspicion in my gut became a constant, painful companion. I am a man who deals in code, in systems, in evidence. Trust had been my operating system for our marriage, and now it had crashed. Using the skills from my profession, I did the one thing I never believed myself capable of. I accessed our detailed phone bill. The data was a brutal, unemotional map of her betrayal. One number, with a 702 area code, Las Vegas, appeared with damning frequency. Dozens of texts exchanged daily. Phone calls that started in the early evening and often lasted for 2, 3, sometimes 4 hours, stretching deep into the night. A reverse phone lookup gave me a name, Jason Miller. A deep dive into his digital footprint revealed a portrait of profound inadequacy. He was 28, a self-proclaimed crypto entrepreneur and lifestyle influencer. His social media feeds were a cringe-inducing collage of get-rich-quick schemes, gym selfies, and lengthy, incoherent posts about high-value men and breaking free from a matrix. He openly joked about living in his aunt's spare room, about his haters who didn't understand his vision. This was the man who was my wife's escape. This was her everything. The timeline I pieced together from their public interactions was a meticulous record of my marriage's assassination. It had started innocuously enough about 8 months ago, with Anna commenting on a generic post of his about manifesting your best life. His replies were friendly, encouraging. Over the months, the comments became more personal, more flirtatious. They discussed their favorite books, their dreams, their frustrations. They had created a secret world for themselves, a digital oasis where they were the misunderstood heroes of their own story, and I was the villainous embodiment of the system that held them down. Her entire existential crisis, her plea for space to find herself, was a carefully constructed lie designed to facilitate this emotional affair. I didn't confront her. The heartbreak was now secondary to a cold, sharp focus on survival. This was no longer a marital dispute. It was a custody battle in the making. I began building my case with the methodical precision of a software engineer debugging a critical failure. I took screenshots of every public like, every comment, every post. I compiled spreadsheets of the phone records, highlighting the absurd volume of communication. I created a digital dossier that chronicled the entire sordid affair. I opened a separate bank account and began setting aside money. I consulted, in secret, with one of the best family law attorneys in Austin. The confrontation was triggered by her own hubris. She called me, her voice laced with theatrical, breathless excitement. "David, I've had a real breakthrough out here. Being away from the noise of our life has given me so much clarity. I think I need a more permanent change, a new environment that nurtures my soul, somewhere with more creative energy, more opportunity for authentic growth, for me and for Lily." I felt the floor drop out from under me. "What are you saying, Anna?" I asked, my voice dangerously calm. "I'm thinking of relocating, permanently, maybe to Nevada. The energy is different there. The cost of living is lower. It could be a fresh start for all of us. You could even visit, maybe find a job out here. Are you out of your mind?" I hissed, my composure cracking. "You want to take our daughter to live in the desert with some deadbeat influencer you met online? His name is Jason Miller, Anna. He lives with his aunt. He has no job. I know everything." The silence on the other end of the line was profound. I could almost hear the gears in her brain seizing. When she finally spoke, her voice was a ragged whisper. You've been spying on me? I've been uncovering the truth you've been hiding. We need to talk. In person. Tomorrow." We met at a bland, corporate coffee shop halfway between Austin and San Antonio. The air smelled of stale coffee and anxiety. I placed a thick manila folder on the table between us and slid it toward her. She opened it with trembling hands. As she flipped through the pages, the detailed call logs, the screenshots of Jason's pathetic musings, her own effusive comments on his posts, I watched the color drain from her face. The carefully constructed persona of the enlightened, self-actualizing woman crumbled, revealing the scared, deceitful person underneath. "It's not what you think," she finally cried, tears welling in her eyes. "He understands me in a way you never could. You listen to fix things, David. He listens to hear me. You provide a life. He makes me feel alive. I see you perfectly clearly now." I said, my voice like ice. "I see a woman who has been lying to her husband for the better part of a year. I see a mother who is planning to kidnap our daughter to go play house with a man who has no job, no prospects, and no shame. This is a spiritual awakening, Anna. It's a midlife crisis fueled by a pathological liar you found on the internet." The conversation devolved into a vicious cycle of accusation and justification. She blamed me for her unhappiness, for my emotional reserve, for the comfortable life I provided that she now framed as a prison. She painted Jason as a misunderstood visionary, a free spirit. I told her she was free to fly off into the sunset with her visionary, but she was doing it alone. That's when I delivered the final blow. I told her I'd already retained a lawyer and would be filing for divorce and primary custody of Lily by the end of the week. She exploded. The tears of self-pity vanished, replaced by incandescent rage. She stood up, knocking her chair back, and screamed that I was a controlling, manipulative monster. She accused me of using Lily as a pawn to punish her for seeking happiness. She spat that she'd been dying a slow death in our marriage for years, and that I was too self-absorbed to even notice. I stood up, threw a $20 bill onto the table, and looked at the stranger who used to be my wife. Be as happy as you want, Anna, but Lily stays with me. I filed the divorce papers the next morning, citing grounds of adultery and her explicit plans to relocate our child out of state for non-essential reasons that were not in Lily's best interest. Immediately after, I called her parents. They were initially defensive, having only heard Anna's sanitized version of events, the overwhelmed mother needing a temporary respite. When I laid out the facts, when I described Jason, and the plan moved to Nevada, they were horrified. The phone call ended with her father, a normally stoic man, sounding choked up and promising they would not support any attempt to move Lily away from her home. Anna's support system had just been severely compromised. The legal battle was emotionally draining, but forensically straightforward. Anna, using the money her parents had likely given her, hired a competent attorney who fought hard for primary custody, leveraging Anna's status as Lily's primary caregiver for the past year. But her own words and actions were her undoing. My evidence was overwhelming and meticulously organized. The judge, a no-nonsense woman in her 60s, was visibly appalled during the proceedings. She interrogated Anna on the stand about Jason, his employment, his living situation, and the logic behind uprooting a 7-year-old from her father, her school, and her friends to live with a stranger in a new state. Anna's answers were evasive, emotional, and ultimately self-incriminating. The ruling was a vindication of every difficult choice I had made. I was granted primary physical custody of Lily. Anna was awarded standard possession every other weekend, one evening per week for dinner, and split holidays. Critically, the court order contained strict stipulations. Anna was prohibited from removing Lily from Travis County without my prior written consent or court order. Furthermore, she was expressly forbidden from introducing Lily to any romantic partner without first providing me with 90 days written notice and obtaining a court order approving the introduction after review of the partner's background and the potential impact on the child. In the immediate aftermath, there was a tense, exhausted peace. Anna rented a small one-bedroom apartment in a less desirable part of Austin and found work as a receptionist at a different law firm. Lily, with the remarkable resilience of children, adapted to the new routine. She was visibly happier and more relaxed back in her own room, her own school, and the consistent, predictable environment of my home. For a few months, I dared to hope the worst was over. Then, the pattern began to repeat itself. Lily came home from a weekend with her mother, chattering happily about Mommy's funny friend Jay, who she got to talk to on the computer. She said he did silly voices and asked her about her favorite Disney movies. A cold fury washed over me. I called Anna immediately. "It's just video calls, David," she argued, her voice tight with defiance. "He's not a stranger to her anymore. He's an important part of my life, and he wants to be a positive, supportive figure in Lily's life. He's great with kids. He is the man you betrayed our family with, Anna." I shot back, my voice trembling with rage. "The court order is not a suggestion. It is the law. You are not to introduce her to your partners. This ends now, or I will file a motion for contempt and seek to have your visitation supervised." She cursed at me and hung up, but I knew I had gotten through. For a few weeks, the mentions of Jay stopped. But the peace was fragile, built on the thin ice of Anna's resentment. A month later, the ice cracked. Lily, in her innocent way, mentioned that Mommy was planning a super-secret adventure for the summer to a place with lots of shiny lights and giant pirate ships. My blood ran cold. Las Vegas. She was still planning it. This time, when I confronted Anna, she didn't bother with denial. She was almost boastful. Yes, she had been planning to take Lily to meet Jason during her extended summer possession. She claimed the custody restrictions were unfair and punitive, and that she deserved to have a life and share it with her daughter. It was then she revealed their new, laughable plan. Jason was going to move to Austin. The unemployed crypto bro from Vegas was suddenly going to find fortune in one of the most competitive job markets in the country, all for the sake of their love. That was the final confirmation that her judgment was permanently impaired. I went back to court, armed with Lily's statements and a record of my warnings to Anna. The judge was once again not amused. He tightened the restrictions to an even greater degree. The order was modified to explicitly state that Anna could not remove Lily from the state of Texas under any circumstances, without a formal court hearing and my consent. Furthermore, the requirement for introducing romantic partners was expanded. She now had to provide me with the individual's full name, address, and employment history 60 days in advance. And the introduction could only occur after a court-appointed child psychologist had conducted an assessment to determine if it was in Lily's best interest. After the hearing, Anna approached me in the courthouse hallway. Her face was a mask of pure, undiluted hatred. "You've won, David. You've got her all to yourself. You've taken my daughter and boxed me into a corner. I hope your perfect, controlled life makes you happy." "I'm not happy, Anna," I said, feeling a profound and weary sadness. "I'm relieved that my daughter is safe from your spectacularly bad judgment and the chaos you insist on calling happiness." That was several months ago. Anna still sees Lily on her scheduled days. The grand, secret trip to Las Vegas never materialized. Jason never appeared in Austin. The grand romance, it seemed, could not survive the transition from digital fantasy to legal and financial reality. The man who was her escape and everything evaporated when faced with the prospect of actual responsibility. Now, the house is quiet in the evenings, but it's a different kind of quiet. It's not the silence of absence, but the peaceful quiet of stability. It's filled with the sound of Lily practicing her reading, the soft click of Lego bricks, and the comfortable hum of our shared life. The scar of Anna's betrayal is still there, a permanent fissure in my heart, but it no longer threatens to break me. I look at my daughter, happy, secure, and thriving in the safe harbor I fought so hard to preserve, and I know, with absolute certainty, that every painful, necessary step was worth it. The woman I love had been lost long before she asked for that break, consumed by a selfish and destructive fantasy. But from the wreckage, I managed to save our daughter's future, and in doing so, I found a strength I never knew I possessed.